Hello and welcome back to the Mainly Sports Podcast. He's Jeesh.
And he's Shoop.
Today's podcast is on top 10 underrated NFL players since 2000. So let's get into it. Josh, you start this time, so you go first. Give me number 10.
All right, starting off at my number 10. This is actually breaking news. I just had a late swap. I took one of my honorable mentions out and put him in number 10. So I'm putting Steve Smith, wide receiver, at my number 10. I don't have the reason why he's number 10 right, but I just know he's number 10. And yeah, he's a very small receiver. He got fantastic hands. I mean, I don't know if he'd be underrated. I mean, he was considered one of the best, well, not like one of the best, but he had a great career with Carolina. And I'm just thinking because he played with Jake, who was it, Jake Delhomme, as his quarterback for all them years, and Jake Delhomme, I think, is not good at all. So, and then he played with Joe Flacco. So he hasn't had a good quarterback, and he's made good use of his career.
I like how you skipped over the worst quarterback you ever played with, and that was Cam Newton. But just saying, hot take.
Cam Newton shouldn't even been mentioned in this podcast.
I think, honestly, I think you're right with the underrated, but I think it was just underrated by Carolina because they shipped him out, dude, so fast. Like he did nothing for them.
Mm-hmm.
And he took that so personal. Like I think NFL fans appreciate Steve Smith.
Yeah.
I think the only person that doesn't appreciate his skills is Carolina. I think that's the only place he's actually underrated.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand why he'd be on the list because he did get done very dirty by Carolina.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Who'd you bounce out of your list for him though?
I can't go. If I tell you, I'm going to have to go into detail.
Okay, go into detail. Go for it.
All right. Originally, so it would have been Matt Schaub, and I know you've been very shocked me saying Matt Schaub.
No.
So let me just tell you why. Matt Schaub, when he was healthy, I understand he was hurt a bunch of times and he didn't start every game. I think he started every game maybe once or twice in his career.
Mm-hmm.
When he did play, he performed very good. I think I can't remember what year it was. I believe he threw almost 30 touchdowns, and for a quote backup quarterback, and for the Houston Texans at that, it wasn't that bad. He just didn't have the opportunities handed to him that he could have had, and if he did, he could have been a Pro Bowl quarterback. I think it's more of what could have been. That's why I took him out.
Yeah, I don't see anything. You'll be a whole lot more surprised by one of my quarterbacks that I have than Matt Schaub, 100%. But for my number 10, I have Terrell Owens. You want me to tell you why?
Tell us why. I would love to hear this.
Because to sports fans, I'm not even going to say NFL fans, to sports fans, Terrell Owens is appreciated for his football skill.
Mm-hmm.
Where he is underrated is the Hall of Fame committee. He finally got in, but it took 3 years. It took 3 years for this man to get in. Arguably the second best wide receiver in NFL history. It took him 3 years to get in, and Randy Moss was a year one, who had 4 really down years with Oakland, by the way. Terrell Owens, okay? He did hold the record for most receptions in a game for a while until Randy Moss took that. But I found this stat when I was looking at his stats. Only player in NFL history to score on all 32 teams. And then the crazy thing is he one-upped himself by being the only player to score on every single team twice. So not only is he the only one to ever score on every single team, he scored on every single team at least twice. Mm-hmm. Then he's also third in receiving yards, third in touchdowns, 8th in receptions. And this man waited 3 years. 3 years this man waited, dude. He was eighth in receptions and only and third in receiving yards and touchdowns. Imagine if he was like third in receptions, what he could have done. Think about that, dude. This man was a beast, and I think people appreciate him. Sports fans appreciate him, but the Hall of Fame committee does not appreciate him, and NFL as a whole does not appreciate Terrell Owens because of his temper, I guess, or the way he acted in the locker room. But
Yeah.
I don't care what he did in the locker room. He was a winner. He went out there and he played in a Super Bowl with a broken ankle and was still the best player on the field. So in my book, that's Hall of Fame number one. If you're right behind Jerry Rice as the greatest receiver of all time, how are you not a first ballot Hall of Famer? Like, I totally feel for Terrell Owens when he says that he feels disrespected, and I know exactly why he didn't go to Canton. And people say, oh, he's going to regret it. And he probably will. But at the heat of the moment, you made me wait 3 years. No, screw you. I'm not coming out there. You can send my gold jacket to me. I ain't coming to you. So I agree with it. But yeah, Terrell Owens is number 10.
Okay. So basically, the problem is with the Hall of Fame committee, not the fans. I got that. So I agree. I agree with what you're saying.
But that's also why I only had him at 10. Because
Yeah.
he's not super overrated or underrated, but he is underrated. So
another little fix here. You said Randy Moss broke his catch record in the game. It was Brandon Marshall, actually.
oh yeah, that's right. Yes. My bad.
No,
Yes.
you're good. A little correction there. All right, moving on. Number 9, running back Work Done. He kind of barely made my list.
Yeah.
But he had a decent career. He also had five over 1,000 yard seasons, which isn't bad, and he didn't play that long in his career. I don't believe. Let me just double check on this. I only think he played until he was like 32 or 33.
Yeah, he didn't play
Which
too long.
running backs don't last long anyway. But
And while you're looking for that, can I just give him a shout out for looking like Dwayne Wade? That's all I'm saying. He's got the same cheeks as Dwayne Wade.
cheeks into it, yeah. Work Done. He retired at 33, and he started 6 games that year. Yeah, he started 6 games. He still ran for 786 yards, so it's not bad. But he had 49 touchdowns in his career, so he's not horrible. His receptions weren't terrible either.
So here's the one that you're going to be more surprised about than Matt Schaub, and that is Ryan Fitzpatrick, number 9. And you might be going, what the hell are you talking about? So he has almost 33,000 passing yards and 210 touchdowns, right? That's pretty middle of the road. Like that's a quarterback that's had a chance to start in the NFL, but just had a average to a little bit below average career, right?
Correct.
But let's look at the teams that he played on. Cincinnati in 08, pretty good team, right? But that was his first really chance to really start and play. So I give him a pass on that year. He didn't do too well. I think he had like 8 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, something like that. But then the next 3 years was with Buffalo, 2009, 2012. Was Buffalo killing anybody in them years?
Nope.
No, they gave up Marshawn Lynch for nothing. That's how bad they were. All right. Then he went to Tennessee for a year in 2013. Was Tennessee killing people in 13? Nope. But then he goes to Houston. So this whole time, he's not had a team, right? He hasn't had a team at all. He goes to Houston in 2014. Actually has a decent team. Andre Johnson to throw to, right? And he goes for 63% completion, 17 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and only 12 games started. That's pretty good. And he also had a little over 2,300 or 2,400 passing yards, which is pretty good. And then he played with the Jets from 15 to 16. Then Tampa Bay from 17 to 18. Were either one of them teams lighting anybody up? No.
Nope.
So then he goes to Miami, and this season is what actually made me think about him as underrated. Miami, known as the laughing stock of the season, right? His completion percentage was 62%. That's better than one Dan Marino in his career, right? 20 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Who did he have to throw to?
Nobody besides
Nobody.
Devontae Parker.
He had Devontae Parker to throw to, and he threw 20 touchdowns, only 13 interceptions for 3,500 yards. And Gesicki isn't that good of a tight end. Who did he have running the ball for him? Kenny Balaj? Because they traded away the only guy that could actually play, and then the other one that could play ended up getting suspended because he's an idiot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that right there, the teams that he played for, and to have 33,000 yards and 210 touchdowns, underrated in my opinion. Is he a Hall of Famer? No, not by any means. But is he an average to above average quarterback? Yes, he's not a below average quarterback like everybody thinks he is. So,
Yeah.
number 9, Ryan Fitzpatrick.
All right. Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. You're surprised, ain't you?
Well, he's my number 1. No, just kidding.
Yeah, I bet.
All right, moving on to number 8. I hate to say it because he's a Redskin. Yeah, Santana Moss. He didn't have the greatest of all careers, but 52.2 yards per game. Not fantastic. And 66 touchdowns for his career. But with no quarterbacks throwing to him, he did a damn good job. Because he played for, I believe he played for Washington his whole career, except for 1 year, I believe. It was the Jets, I believe he played for. And even with the Jets, he didn't have a quarterback. I always thought Santana Moss, I always liked him as a wide receiver, even though he was a Redskin. I don't know. There was just something about what he did on the field without having anybody around him. Just made him look really good, and he got no recognition for it. So I put Santana Moss at number 8.
I'm just going to say, I'm not going to say anything bad about that because it's not a bad pick. I'm just going to say shout out to Dante Hall. That's all I got to say. My number 8, Brian Westbrook. The reason why is because this is actually the person when we were making this. This is what I was talking about. We're getting into these next 2 picks are kind of a Steve Smith kind of thing, in a way. Brian Westbrook, loved by Philadelphia fans, right? He's in the Philadelphia Hall of Fame. He's in the Eagles Hall of Fame. But outside of Philadelphia, do you hear anybody mention him? No. Nope. Underrated. And you want to hear a cool fact about Brian Westbrook? Brian Westbrook has 71 touchdowns combined and 10,000 plus yards combined rushing, right? He led you guys' team in 07 with 91 receptions. He was the first ever running back to lead his team in receptions.
Yeah.
First ever one. You want to talk about a Swiss Army knife? There you go. Dude, he was lining up in slot. He was lining up out at receiver. Out on the outside, he was lining up. In the early 2000s, you never saw that. Ever. Like, ever. You barely see that now. You see that with Le'Veon Bell. But that's about it. You don't see running backs doing that. So, or Alvin Kamara does that as well. So, yeah, Brian Westbrook. Just because if Brian Westbrook was playing today, I think he would be along the lines of a McCaffrey. I think people would look at him as like a McCaffrey. So, I just feel like I just don't feel like he got the attention that he deserves because of the time he played in, and it was far ahead of his time. So, and what he's able to do.
Yeah, I get that. I like it. Just because I'm an Eagles fan. Philly.
Bet you do.
All right. We're moving on to number 7 here. This is, let me just tell you, I didn't have no quarterbacks on my underrated list. Just to let you know.
You did until you started. But
I did until I changed it at the last second. This is the only offensive lineman I have on here. And Joe Thomas, very underrated for what he did, playing for, mind you, the Cleveland Browns of all teams. The other laughing stock of the NFL, besides the Dolphins. The snap streak that he had of 10,363 straight snaps, he's never, ever going to be touched. Ever again. It's not even going to be close. It's like, I think it's like what, 10 years? 10 straight years? Not less than a snap? Like,
that's impressive.
Crazy. It is very impressive. And for being a player on the Cleveland Browns, that's even more impressive. And that's why he's on my list, just because of him being, and he was good too. It's not like he was a bad lineman. Obviously, he was good if he played 10,363 straight snaps.
Yeah, and you know, also he's looked at as one of the greatest offensive linemen of all time. It almost sounds like with that pick, it's like a guys I feel like deserve a Super Bowl because you feel bad for him for playing for the Browns all them years. I mean, he could have left. He was just faithful, but no, he was very very good. So my number 7, I almost had Brian Westbrook at 7. I have Hines Ward instead because he's a Steeler. So Hines Ward is another Brian Westbrook guy. Hines Ward is loved by Steelers. I should know. I cried at his retirement. But the rest of the league, do they care about Hines Ward? No. No, but he has 1,000 yards, 1,000 receptions. Not a lot of receivers have that. Over 12,000 yards receiving, 85 touchdowns. And can you tell me a better blocking wide receiver in the history of the NFL than Hines Ward? Because I've had a lot of time in the quarantine to go back and watch old football games. And I've watched a lot of Steelers ones. And Hines Ward was an animal. Like, this dude would put you on your ass if you're a linebacker, and it's a run play. He would put a linebacker on his ass and then go outrun a cornerback. That's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
So, Hines Ward, for the simple fact of nobody mentions him at all. And how is he never considered in at all for greatest wide receivers of the 2010 or the 2000 decade ever? Or is anybody going to mention him? Grant, I'm not going to say he's better than Randy Moss. I'm not going to say he's better. Well, Randy Moss is a little debatable, but because at least Hines Ward didn't have down years. But is he better than Terrell Owens? No. Is he better than Larry Fitzgerald? No. But he's in there. You at least got to give him some discussion, you know? And people don't. So, yep, number 7 is Hines Ward.
Not bad. Not bad. Number 6. Yes, moving on to number 6 for me. And I understand where you're going to disagree, or some people would disagree, that he had Tom Brady and Peyton Manning as quarterbacks. Wes Welker played that slot so damn well. He had 5 seasons, and he didn't play a lot of seasons. He had 5 seasons of 100-plus receptions in a season, which, as a slot guy, that's very good. He also had 50 touchdowns for his career, which doesn't look like a lot. But like I said, slot guys, they don't really get the recognition that guys who run on the outside get. Like the guys he played with, which like a Demaryius Thomas or whoever the Patriots had at the time, whoever their Walmart cashiers were. The size. He wasn't that big, and the work he put in. He's got, yeah. Wes Welker number 6. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you're right. I don't agree. The only reason why is because I had a feeling this would happen if I did it, so I did it. I pulled my phone out while you were talking, and I just typed in best slot receiver in NFL history. Do you know what pops up? Wes Welker is considered by many as the greatest slot receiver of all time. Though I think nothing ill of that notion, the man did have Tom Brady and Peyton Manning at his disposal. But it goes on to talk about Wes Welker being the greatest slot receiver of all time. I think people know. I don't think it's a secret.
No, they don't know enough.
Okay. And that's what I can't argue with. That's your opinion. I can't argue with that. You really like Wes Welker. That's fine.
No, I really don't. I hated him.
So, yeah, I didn't like him either only because he was a Patriot. But I did like him when he was a Dolphin. Who remembers them days? Steven Jackson is my number 6. He had such a long career. Didn't he play like 18 years? Like, that's crazy. He played a long friggin' time. Or 14 years, something like that.
Steven Jackson?
Yeah, Steven Jackson. He played with the Rams for at least like 10 years. Then he went to the Ravens for like 4 or 5, I feel like. So it had to be 14, 15 years they played. But I looked at his stats and to make sure I wasn't going crazy here. And he's the leading rusher in Rams history. Then he's top 20 in total rushing yards, 21st in total yards, completely passing and receiving. He had one season with the Rams, 1,500 yards rushing, 90 catches, and 16 total touchdowns. That's crazy. And people mention Shaun Alexander before they mention Steven Jackson. And yes, Shaun Alexander had one good year, just like Steven Jackson had this really one good year. But Shaun Alexander couldn't catch the ball. Steven Jackson could. The only reason why Steven Jackson's not mentioned is because he was a Ram, and the Rams had nothing throughout that time. So Steven Jackson's numbers back up why he is so good, and so that's why I have Steven Jackson at number 6.
Okay. I don't agree, but that's okay.
Okay. What don't you agree with though?
I mean, you could put him as underrated if you're from maybe most people who didn't root for St. Louis didn't really know who he was, or people who didn't really pay attention to the game might not know who he is. But if he was the best running back, in my eyes, I thought he was one of the best running backs for a few years there, from like what was it 06 to like 10 or 11, something like that. And then once they traded him, started to be garbage. As soon as he hit 30 years old, he was garbage. I don't understand that, but I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say he was underrated, but I wouldn't. That's okay.
I would 100% say he was overrated just for that, because he's not. If you look at the all-decade team for 2010s, he's not even on that. He's not even on that list. And for his career numbers, he deserves it, but he's not on the all-decade team for 2000s. So,
yeah.
All right, number 5 for you.
You're not going to agree with me on this one either. But this is kind of going. I'm being greedy and putting my Eagles player in there. I got to put Deshaun Jackson in there only because he's not he's not a go-to receiver or anything. Like you see Deshaun Jackson on the field, you're like, oh, you got to cover him. Yeah, I do got to cover him though, because he can outrun you. If you don't keep an eye on him for more than 1 second, if you take your eyes off him for more than a second, he's gone. You ain't catching him. Even to this day, you're still not catching him. How old is he now? Like 34 years old, something like that?
Yep.
He is still probably one of the top 10 fastest guys in this league. And just the explosiveness that he has, or had, and he still does have, probably, just made him so unique. And it's not just the receiving, it was the punt returns, the kick returns. You didn't know what you were going to get with him. He could do a lot in those fields of the game. I don't think he was never a number 1 receiver, but he was, if he had more height, he would be one of the greatest of all time.
Whoa, I was agreeing with you until you said that, but all right. I
Yeah, that's right. I said it. If he was 6'4", he would be second. He'd be better than Terrell Owens.
All right, that's fine. So then, fine, if Tyreek Hill was 6'4", Tyreek Hill would be the greatest NFL player to ever play.
Yeah.
But he's not. He's not that tall. Like,
right.
Deshaun Jackson is if you took Deshaun Jackson in his prime and put him on the Eagles right now, same age as Tyreek Hill, people would say, yeah, he is Philadelphia's version of Tyreek Hill.
Mm-hmm.
He's a poor man's Tyreek Hill. He's a straight runner. The only difference is Tyreek Hill can run routes. Deshaun Jackson, I don't trust him as a route runner. He has gotten better though as he's gotten a little bit older. But his first stint with the Eagles, when he was very popular with the Eagles, he was more of just a run straight down the field guy rather than a route runner.
And it worked.
It did, because he was just fast. But if a defensive coordinator was like, well, screw this, we're just going to put a safety over the top of him. You're not going to outrun a safety that's got 15 yards on you. That's where he got better though later on in his career, because he realized, hey, people are going to start double teaming me with the safeties like they did in Philadelphia. They started doing that, and he ended up being so invaluable to the Eagles that they traded him. And then he realized, hey, if I just sit down on my route instead of just keeping running and just being covered, why don't I just sit down on my route and turn around? Because that safety's 15 yards away from me. He ain't going to be able to get back to me before the ball gets to me. And he learned that. So he did get a little bit better in his route running later on. But in his first stint with the Eagles, I feel like he was just a straight up and down wide receiver, just run straight. So yeah. I think that's what limited him and ultimately got him traded.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5 for me is Corey Dillon. Honestly, nobody would know who Corey Dillon is if he didn't go to the Patriots to win the Super Bowl. If the Patriots would not have traded for him before that Super Bowl run, I don't think anybody outside of Cincinnati would know who Corey Dillon was. Because Corey Dillon was very good with the Bengals. He didn't have a super long career. But with the Bengals, it was just how he played. He played like a Jerome Bettis.
Mhm.
Instead of juking you out, I'm going to run you over. And so that lessened his mileage on his legs. But he had over 11,000 yards rushing, which is 20th all time, and 89 touchdowns. Like that's pretty good for being known for one season, because nobody else knows him other than that one season with the Patriots. So, or two seasons. I think he played two. But so yeah, Corey Dillon. I don't have really too much to say about him because it's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think any casual fan. So pretty much, I don't think any Patriots fan, since we're saying casual fan, any Patriots fan actually knows where he came from, which just shows how underrated he was with Cincinnati.
So Corey Dillon was a Patriot, and my number 4 is also a Patriot, but we're going to the defensive side of the ball, and we're going to go linebacker Teddy Bruschi.
Okay.
I think Teddy Bruschi is very underrated. He played 6 full seasons basically. His sixth, one of those 6 seasons. So he played 5 seasons of 16 games. One of those seasons was 14 games, and in all those seasons he had 90 plus tackles. Every other season he was either hurt or something. He missed those games. When he was out there, he was dominating and he was getting tackles left and right. And I say 90 plus. He had 5 seasons of 100 plus. And one of those seasons was 90 plus. So
Yeah.
he was a leader on that defense for all those years. And everybody in New England who was Patriots fans loved Teddy Bruschi. And I know you know who Teddy Bruschi is, obviously, because Patriots fans
Yeah.
are always on. Patriots games are always on around here. But Teddy Bruschi, I put him as one of the all-time best defensive players for the Patriots of all time. Teddy Bruschi, I think, is very underrated. I almost put him at number 3, but I didn't.
Yeah. I know who isn't Teddy Bruschi the guy the analyst
Yeah,
on yeah, that's the guy. Yeah, I know who that is. He played in the
yeah.
NFL? Holy cow. No, I honestly, while he was playing, I think when he was playing, he was more underrated. But now that he doesn't play and he talks about football and stuff, I think he's actually people have appreciated more around the league other than just Patriots fans since he became an analyst. I think his stock's gone up as a player. But as a player, well, while he was playing, yeah, very underrated. I would agree with that. I actually almost chose Asante Samuel for this
Yeah.
list. I almost did, dude. Because Asante Samuel's the man. Also, I almost chose Lawyer Malloy. Yeah, I like that from Teddy Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bruschi. God. Number 4 is my last quarterback on this list, Eli Manning.
Oh, here we go.
What's wrong, Jeesh? You don't like this pick?
He should be on the other side. He should be overrated.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Well, go
Really?
ahead. Tell me why he's underrated.
He's a turnover machine, right? You realize that he threw over 100 more touchdowns than interceptions for being a turnover machine? He also threw for 57,000 yards, dude. 57,000. He beat an undefeated Patriots team. And then he was like, oh, yeah? You think that's impressive? Now, in 2012, I'm going to beat a Patriots team with a murderer on their team. And he did it. Eli Manning, far more clutch than his brother. 100%. His clutch gene is out of this world. If the way I describe Eli Manning, if Eli Manning got to the playoffs, you had to be scared. It was just a big if. Yeah, was he average in the regular season? Sure. But he was legendary in the postseason. Legendary, especially in them 2 runs. And even the playoff seasons that runs that they got into and they lost right out, he still had good games. It wasn't like he played horrible in them games that he lost in the playoffs. He still played good. But inept GM that doesn't really put much talent around you. Eli Manning never had a good offensive line, really ever. I think Sean O'Hara was his best lineman throughout his career, which is a pretty good lineman. But you can only name one lineman that he had. Receivers, he didn't have the greatest receivers. Odell Beckham, but he's a wine. I'm not even going to get into him. Plexico Burris, and he had good years of Plexico. I just think he's underrated for what he had to work with and what he did. And do you want to talk about longevity? That man started a lot of games. He never sat, dude. The only reason why he missed a game was because they benched him. That was it. And then brought him right back the next week because they realized that it wasn't him that was the problem. It was their entire team that was the problem. Oh, and Fringe Hall of Famer. This man won 2 Super Bowls. 2 Super Bowls. Do you know his completion percentage is better than Dan Marino's?
A lot of players' completion percentage is better than Dan Marino. Dan Marino is definitely your most overrated player. I know that.
Oh, by far, dude. I can't wait for us to do our overrated NFL list. Because there's, dude, if whoever sees it is probably going to hate me.
Right.
But yeah, Dan Marino's #1 on that. Spoiler alert right now. When that podcast comes out, #1 is Dan Marino. 100%. No question about it. But yeah, Eli Manning, #4 most underrated player.
Anyway, number 3, and that's Frank Gore. Gore, in my eyes, is underrated. He's not a superstar running back, but he's also not a bad running back. He's always been a starter. He's always been in the hunt for starting jobs if he wasn't a starter. He has 11 plus seasons. Now, I get 900 yards isn't a lot of yards, but it's not a bad season. 11 plus seasons over 900 yards, and that's very rare for a running back.
Mm-hmm.
79 touchdowns, not a lot, but he's also not a big guy. He's very small. I mean, he's muscular, but he is very consistent and he keeps himself healthy. That is the main thing with him. He keeps himself healthy. I don't even know how old he is right now. He's probably like 35. I'm guessing. I don't know. But like I said, usually running backs don't last in the NFL. The thing I looked at was the 11. Yeah, he's 36 years old.
Yep.
He's been in this league for a while now. But he's always there. He's not a guy you talk about that's going to be running for 160 yards in a game, but he's there. He's going to run the ball. He'll get you a couple catches when you need it. Frank Gore, number 3.
See, I almost had Frank Gore on my list, but this past season is what made him not be on my list. Is because I watched a lot of Buffalo Bills games, and all you had to hear about was Frank Gore and how he's just been in the league for so long. His body just takes a beating and just keeps on going, and you don't see him retiring anytime soon. And before this season, no one really mentioned him, especially in San
Right.
Francisco. But like this last season, I think they're starting to appreciate it now, knowing that he is really old. Like he is freaking old, and I think now they're starting to appreciate him because they know he's going to be getting done soon. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the reason why I didn't put him on my list. But yes, he has been overrated for literally 90% of his career. He has been or underrated. Sorry, for 90% of his career, he has been underrated absurdly. But
Yeah.
#3, Charles Peanut Tillman. Guess what? He didn't make the All-Decade team for defense for the 2000s. He was almost the first ever man to force 40 fumbles and 40 interceptions, but he was 2 interceptions short. He has 40 fumbles, 38 interceptions. It's arguably the second best defense of the 2000s. I think the second best defense of the 2000s is like the whole decade is the Steelers. That's not just a homer pick. We're known for our defense in the 2000s. Ravens had the best defense throughout the 2000s. They were insane. The only problem is they didn't have any offense at all until Joe Flacco came around and helped out their offense. They had no offense. But the Bears are third on that list, in my opinion. Fringe second. Like they could compete with us for second best defense throughout the 2000s period. Like Lance Briggs, yeah, that's a name. Peanut Tillman, dude, that man was insane. And and he was the leader of that defense. And Brian Urlacher, to be on that defense, Peanut Tillman, be the leader of that defense, have the numbers he has, 40 forced fumbles as a corner, that's scary, dude. Like, that's almost like he wants you to catch it so he can just smack the hell out of you. That's scary.
Right.
And nobody talks about him. And for him to not be on that, being in one of the best defenses of the decade, and also a single season, they did have the second best single season. The Ravens of 2000 had the best single season defensive performance. It was the year they made the Super Bowl there against the Colts. They had the best defense that year, second best for a single year of the decade, and for Charles Tillman to not even get a nod or a, hey, look, this is who almost made on the All-Decade team is a shame to me. So he's #3.
Yeah, Charles Tillman. Yeah, he was in my eyes. Yeah, Charles Tillman was very underrated. never got really the attention that he could have had. And like you said, the fumble thing, he was the best at doing it at corner. He almost had a better, yeah, he pretty much had a better chance of forcing a fumble than getting an interception. But yeah, that Bears defense was very good. All right, moving on to my number 2. This could have easily been my number 1, but you wouldn't let me live it down, and you would just be like, "Oh yeah, I told you, yeah, he's really good." And but anyway, number 2 on my list, and I don't know if you're gonna be surprised by it or not, but James Ferrier. I know you know who James Ferrier is because he's Steeler. So James Ferrier had 10 plus years he played in the league. He had 80 or more tackles. Um, in the other years, he had 71 and 78. And yeah, and any other year, yeah, he played. I mean, he started with the Jets, so and he had that. His best season was with the Jets, but when he was with Pittsburgh and he won those 2 Super Bowls with them, he was a key part of that defense.
Yep.
And and the defense with him and both Jameses, James Harrison, and James Ferrier. That was a scary, scary time. James Harrison's good, but I thought James Ferrier could possibly be a little better, but he didn't get the recognition for it. I mean, you could probably tell me better on who's better at defense than them, but James Ferrier was always in the right place at the right time. He knew where you were going, he knew what you were gonna do, and he was that quiet. It was just a quiet name you don't hear about ever. I'll let you take over now.
Do you want to know who the better linebacker was? I can tell you. James Ferrier. It's easy. It's easy.
Yeah.
Here's why. The Patriots actually showed why James Harrison is not as good as James Ferrier. Because when he went to the Patriots, what was he? Just pin your ears back, buddy. Go after that quarterback. That's all he was good for. Like, don't get me wrong. He was amazing at it. And I'm not being a James Harrison hater because he went to the Patriots. No.
Mm-hmm.
I still respect the shit out of him for what he did with the Steelers. But he was a pass rusher. That's all he was. Think about the 2008 Super Bowl with that interception that he had. The only reason why he got that interception was because they like he said to the defensive coordinator. He says, "Look, they think I'm coming at him. It's a pass rush. They think I'm coming at him. Why don't I just drop back into coverage? He's never going to expect it." And obviously, Kurt Warner didn't expect it. He thought that James Harrison was going to come, so James Harrison backed up, and that's how he got that pick. It wasn't from skill. It was from shock that he wasn't doing the one thing that he was amazing at, and that's going after the passer.
Yeah.
It depends on what you want, but James Ferrier was the better all-around linebacker. He can do it all. He can stop the run. He could pass coverage. He could stop tight ends over the middle, stuff like that. He was an all-around better linebacker. Shout out to Larry Foote, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so my number 2 is Tiki Barber.
Okay. Tiki.
Yeah, I have. So remember how I told you that my list is kind of like your list with all the with all the baseball players?
Mm-hmm.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4 running backs in this list. But yeah, so Tiki Barber. I don't even think I really need to explain it. He holds like all the rushing records for the Giants. That's a given. He only played 8 seasons. He retired at literally the peak of his career because he said, "I don't want to be an aging veteran. I want to go out on top." And that's what he did. Not like on top of the league, but at the height of his skills. And that's exactly what he did. For 2005 season, 2,400 total yards. Like that's crazy. That's insane. That's numbers now that running backs are getting, like top running backs for combined yards, like Le'Veon, Ezekiel Elliott, Alvin Kamara, not this past year but the year before. Of the top echelon of running backs, he got them numbers in 2005 and it wasn't even really talked about. He had 3 200-yard games in that one season alone. That's crazy. The thing, that's what Derrick Henry did at the end of this season, and which catapulted him into fame. and nobody talked about it with Tiki Barber. So Tiki Barber did literally the same exact thing, three games in the same year of over 200 yards, but that didn't give him any recognition. So yeah, and he does hold 22 Giants rushing records, which is absurd for 8 years of service. So
Right.
yeah, that's number 2 for me. And dude, he was so humble.
All right. Moving on to number 1 on my list. Edgerrin James started his career when he was 21 years old. He ended it when he was 31 years old. So he only played from 21 to 31. And in those seasons, he missed one of those seasons in 2001. He played 6 games. He started 6 games for him. And in 2008, he started 7. 2009, he started 0. And if you look, that leaves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seasons. There's only 8 seasons of his career. He started over 13 games. And in those 8 seasons, he rushed for over 1,100 yards in each and every one of them. There was not one season where he played a healthy season where he ran under 1,000 yards. Also, there was 4 seasons where he rushed over 10 touchdowns. One of them, three of them were 13 touchdown seasons. It's not bad. It's not like amazing, but for Edgerrin James, where nobody talks about him because he was Peyton Manning's running back, yeah, being Peyton Manning's running back, Peyton Manning throws the ball a lot, and that leaves Edgerrin James. He doesn't get many opportunities, and when he did, he made useful. His yards per attempt for his career is 4 yards. That's not bad. The seasons that best season was the 4.6 average, and that's when he ran for over 1,500 yards. Also, he could catch the ball out of the backfield in his early part of his career until 2006, when he started falling off. Edgerrin James, he was very good. I know people know that, but I don't know if a lot of people know that. So yeah.
No, that's fair. I would say he's underrated. So we flip flopped. Your second was a linebacker. Your first was a running back. My second was a running back, and my first is a linebacker. London Fletcher.
London Fletcher. Oh, Redskins.
Yep. But get this. You want to know something that's never going to happen again either? You said Joe Thomas with all his straight snaps. How about a linebacker, 250 plus straight starts?
Really?
Yeah. Do you think that's ever going to happen again? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about underrated. He was never an All-Pro, but he's second in NFL history in total tackles. That's doing your job.
Mm-hmm.
But on top of that, he has over 20 interceptions. That's more than a lot of corners.
Yeah.
This man did it all, but he never got credit for it. Like if you look back on them times, you had Brian Urlacher, Ray Lewis, right? Terrell Suggs would even be above him, probably, right? There's all kinds of linebackers. Teddy Bruschi might actually be ahead of him. If people are thinking of like linebackers, Teddy Bruschi would probably be ahead of him just by name, you know. No one's gonna think London Fletcher. But then if you look at the history books, London Fletcher number 2 in tackles. Like that's insane. What Darrelle Revis probably has like close to 30. So he's like right behind Darrelle Revis in interceptions. But the only difference is he was very reliable, never injured, and tackled everything that touched a football. Everything.
Yeah.
London Fletcher was literally an all-purpose linebacker. He would do pass rush. He would run stuffer, pass coverage. If you asked him to do it, he's like, yeah, I'll do that. Got you. For over 250 straight games that he never missed one.
Yeah.
And never got an All-Pro. Ever. That's unbelievable to me. When I saw that stat alone, right there, 0 All-Pros with them numbers, 100%, in my opinion, the most underrated NFL player of all time in our generation.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's number one for me.
Yeah, I just looked at the stats. Those stats are really crazy for not. I mean, I know London Fletcher, but like not a lot of people do,
Yeah,
and they should. I mean, you come into the league and you get 89 tackles in your second season. That's
yeah,
when he was just getting started. That's his first season. He's actually started every game. Like
yeah,
89 tackles. That's still good.
yeah,
And then he retires at 38 with 111.
yeah.
Like, come on now. And every season he played was 100 tackles. Besides that one season, basically.
Yep. And that's an Eagles fan defending a Redskin.
And on that side note, Darrell Reeves had 29 interceptions.
Yeah, see, right around 30.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is crazy. So where the hell is Fletcher Island, huh? Where's that?
Right?
Like, it's crazy, dude. When I started reading about it, I was like, holy crap! Because like I told you, I kind of cheated by seeing that
Mm-hmm.
video, and
Yeah.
so they were talking about that, so I read about it, and I was like, no friggin' way. And then when we were doing this list, I was like, yeah, London Fletcher, I already know, number one. So I did cheat a little bit.
Yeah.
So then, would you agree that London Fletcher might actually be the most underrated player of our generation?
You very well could be.
See, if nothing else, he's probably top two on your list now, right? Would probably push back James Ferrier now?
I'd push them all back, probably.
Yeah, yeah. See, like that's crazy, dude. It's it's a shame. It's a shame, and I hope he does see the Hall of Fame one day, though. I think that would be like the ultimate, like slap in the face. To everybody, like screw you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know when he's eligible though. What year did he retire?
2013.
Yeah, so he's already been eligible. So he has to get it, dude. There's no way. And because he never had any off the field stuff. Like he was never a bad dude. He was never doping. He was never acting crazy. He was never getting in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So that's crazy to me. Do you have any honorable mentions?
Mike Vrabel.
Okay. Yeah.
That's it.
Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to give out a shout out to Larry Foote again. That'll be my one honorable mention. When you mentioned James Ferrier, all I could think about was Larry Foote
Yeah.
because he was never mentioned either. Ooh, another one, Junior Seau.
Junior Seau. Uh-huh. Can I just throw something out there real quick? I
Yeah.
know you probably read into it, but London Fletcher was also undrafted on top of that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, dude, this was literally somebody that the NFL said nope, and he got a chance. And then the whole entire time they're like, fine, you can be in the league, but we're not going to pay attention to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he had a better career than Brian Urlacher. I won't say he had a better career than Ray Lewis, only because Ray Lewis is, in my opinion, more a skilled linebacker than London Fletcher, even after
Mm-hmm.
reading all that. But London Fletcher is definitely close second to Ray Lewis. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy just how overlooked London Fletcher is. It's ridiculous. And you would think with how much people like to go back and look and reminisce, you would think that somebody would actually catch that, that mattered at least. Because there's clearly, I watched a YouTube video on it. People have noticed it, but people that actually matter, that have a say in that kind of stuff, haven't noticed it for some reason. And I don't know how.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Which I find it ironic because Terrell Owens is number 10 on my list, and he did a bunch of politicking to get into the Hall of Fame, and
Mm-hmm.
nobody's heard peep from London Fletcher. Like that shows the difference. Like London Fletcher does not care, because London Fletcher's probably sitting back in the day going, "Dude, my stats speak for themselves." So, hey, either I get in or I don't. Either way, I know I was the top two linebacker while I played. So
Well, since we just finished the NFL list, I would like to take a shout out. A second to give a shout out to newly Philadelphia Eagle, Jalen Hurts, and I wish him the best. And that's all.
Yeah, that's getting cut.
Thanks for listening to the Mainly Sports Podcast with Shoop and Jeesh. Make sure to leave a comment and give us your top 10 list. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and follow us on Instagram at mainly_sports. And that's mainly_sports, MAINELY_SPORTZ. Thank you. Till next time.